Good evening. We are in the room. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming into the room. I am Michelle Lindsay. We have some other panelists tonight, our Freddie Ocasio and our Tracy Smith. We are just so excited that you guys are in the room tonight, and we want to just first thank God for our church, Restoration Christian Ministries, and our senior pastor, L. Campbell, that has allowed us this opportunity to come in and speak about education. There's a lot of stuff going on, so we're not going to waste time. We're going to get right to it. I'm going to let the other panelists address you and let you know who they are as educators, and then we'll continue. So, Tracy, if you would like to introduce yourself, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tracy Smith. I am a 27-year veteran biology teacher, as well as administrator and new teacher, mentor, and recruiter. Welcome.
Hello, awesome. Thank you, Tracy. And go ahead, Freddie.
Sorry about that. Hello, my name is Freddie Ocasio, and I am a licensed school teacher with the New York City Department of Education for the last 19 years. My license is in students with disabilities, birth to grade 2, and I'm presently working in District 75 with children with autism as a gym teacher.
Awesome. And my name is Michelle, Bontemps Lindsay. I am a 23-year veteran teacher. I have taught every grade known to man, but right now I am working in a middle school, all school, boys school, and I will be teaching ELA. But my background is in reading, and I've been a reading specialist for 7 years. So tonight, this educational system that we are now in, we know that this is a new norm. We thank God that it is a way for us to be able to come and help you tonight. We hope that parents are in the room. If you have questions, please let us know. We definitely want to facilitate those questions. And so first, let's just start with the beginning, right? Today, as of today, our Governor Cuomo has announced that school in New York State can reopen. There are some caveats to that, right? There are some things that he has said that the teachers and the schools have to do in order to be able to make the kids safe. And I know personally that I've had a lot of people come to me and ask me, well, what should we do? Should we stay home? Should we go to school? What are the educators saying? And so then in that, I went to my pastor and I said, Pastor, let's just have an educational talk around this new norm. And so we're just going to facilitate that conversation tonight. And you have some experts that have been in education, and this is still a new norm for us, right? We have never been this way before, unless you do home. You have never been in this situation. So now I will tell you the choices that your children. You can either go remote, which means that your child never comes into a school building. And usually that's by semester. They're going to do it by trimester, okay? Also, you can do what's called hybrid, and a lot of the schools are facilitating that and making the plans for that. That would mean that your child potentially would go to school 2 days out of the week and then be at home for 3 days, or vice versa, switch. And in education, we went from brick to click at the end of last year. And so this hybrid is a sense of brick and click marrying together. Okay, and so our first question for tonight, and Freddie, I'll ask you this first. What do you as an educator feel school is going to be like next year as a general question? How do you feel that with this new normal, it's just going to be as a teacher for you?
Well, I work for the New York City Department of Education. And, to be completely honest with you, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to tell the parents to expect. I don't think that the top officials officially know what this whole process is going to look like. I know that every time we turn around, they're trying to come up with ways to facilitate that our children are that they will come to school and they'll be safe, with the cleaning and how the kids are coming in, like you yourself said. There's two ways in which parents are going to be given an option. One is virtual learning, which is online completely, and one is hybrid learning, which is, online, and they get to go to the school building physically. Um, Anything after that is up in the air. Teachers don't know, exactly the full picture right now. The information that I've received is a lot of information from the news, but they're also sending out memos on what they're trying to put together for September. So, the complete answer to that is, we have guidelines. They've given us guidelines, but what to expect, I believe that is going to change. And right now, it's hard to say for sure what parents and educators can expect.
Awesome. Tracy, if you want to just chime in and give anything else that you have heard or that you
Uh,
know
well,
of.
well, as was already stated, the the chancellor pretty much has spoken. Our governor has already spoken. So the schools are pretty much in lockstep with the authorities and the school officials. So that which has been pretty much stated, the models that the parents have been given as choices are as stated. The virtual, we can always go with the virtual, as we did in the spring, during the spring term. We also can go with the hybrid, which is basically a blended learning type of model where the students will spend some time in the class at the school on site, because as we know, as of today, the buildings are going to be open and readily available. Um, so the students, based on the surveys that were put out, the city, well, actually, the Department of Education put out a survey, and the parents were to fill out the survey and pretty much indicate the type of model that they would like to select for their child. One of those, again, would be the blended learning, which is the hybrid format and model, and the other one would be the remote learning, where they will be at home and learning virtually by way of the computer. I would move to say that both have disadvantages as well as advantages. So pretty much,
We're gonna get to that in
okay,
1 minute. We're gonna
okay.
get to that in 1 minute. So I do want to also make mention, because you did say that. You said something about, the DOE sending out a survey. And I want to stop right here and pivot this little thing to let the parents know, whoever's listening, if you have not signed a form or filled out a survey and you have from your school, today is the deadline. Especially for
Yes.
education. All right. My school, it was already on the 5th, right? Because I'm a charter school. But I want the parents to know, I want anyone that's chiming in that has a child that is listening to this broadcast, do me a favor and make sure that you've checked your email, because you have to make a choice. You have to decide whether you're going to go remote, or you are going to decide whether you're going to do the hybrid. So it's a different world, right? But there are things, and as Tracy just alluded to, and we're going to pick up that next question, right? What are, in your opinion, I will tell you this: in working in a school last year and going from brick to click was a shock for me, because I've been in education in a brick building all of my education, no career. And so for a lot of teachers, we had to readjust, be flexible, be pliable. And now we are a little bit more knowledgeable. I had no clue what Zoom could do before March of this year. And now the teachers, and I will say this, that I know because I have other friends that are in education, parents, I don't want you to worry, because I know that a lot of the schools are prepared as we go back into school to even facilitate that form of learning even greater now. So as we got thrown into it in March, much of the classroom structure, much of the classroom teaching and the PDs the teachers are going to receive is how to facilitate either that hybrid learning or that remote teaching environment. So, Tracy, just quickly, tell us what you feel is the biggest challenges. Let's start with remote learning. What do you think is going to be some of the biggest challenges or the biggest advantages of remote learning besides the health of children, which is vitally important?
I will start with the disadvantages. I'll start with the disadvantages first, because those are the things that we really need to target at the gate. Our students, based on what we've seen from last spring, and again, this is very organic. We're learning this as we go along. The officials are pretty much rolling this thing out, and we're pretty much listening to what they have to say, but we're also using common sense, we're using discretion, and with the student at the center and at the core, they are our central focus. So having said that, we are looking at them as a whole child. And one of the things that we are most concerned with, and this is one of the issues that the chancellor has pointed out and has addressed. So this is one of the things that we at the schools are seeing as most important and paramount, and that would be the socio emotional aspect of the child, tapping into their emotions, figuring out what's going on. Some of them still are suffering with the shock of what's going on. Some of them are yearning to get back into the schools, to be amongst their friends. So that component is missing, and it's essential, but it's missing, and that's what pretty much they're most concerned about is trying to get the socio-emotional piece in place first. So as opposed to just starting out with baselines and rolling out the curriculum and sharing of syllabi, we're focused on just checking in, doing a general check-in to figure out where these students are emotionally. Some of them realistically are still dealing with the passing of loved ones as well. And they're still trying to go through the grieving process. Some of them, their parents are essential workers, and they're pretty much pulling the weight at homes with the other siblings. So there's a lot of different components that are in play and a lot of moving pieces to the picture. So we are very sensitive to that. So one of the things that I think is most important is doing the general check-in. The other piece is being cognizant of those pitfalls that our students tend to fall into on a normal basis, which is the apathy. And it's very easy for them to be distracted while at home. So it's very difficult to address those issues when we're not physically in their presence. So, I mean, through a computer, we're very much so limited to some of the things that we have to do. So we have to rely on maintain an open line of communication with the parents, making sure that the administration have an open door policy, whether we're in hybrid or whether we're in the virtual. All administrators should be equally accessible or easily accessible, as are the teachers as well. So those are some of the things. The apathy is one issue. Time management, making sure that our students stay on top of their lessons, making sure that, again, that they go into there's a certain amount of time that's set aside for small group learning and tutorial that some teachers have allotted. So being cognizant of the office hours, quote unquote, that the teachers have set up at some schools. So it's just a matter of knowing what the dynamics are at your respective schools, but also being sure about some of the protocols and the measures that have been put in place to ensure the safety of your children first, but also to make sure that they have everything that they need, the essential tools that they need, and that they're aware of what's at their grasp to be successful. Again, so
let's put a pin in that.
Things.
Let's put a pin in right there.
Yeah.
Let's put a pin in right there, because I think we need to speak towards that. Parents, I want to say this to you. Simply because your child stays home for remote learning, I want to encourage you to create an environment for education. It is example for them to be able to come and know that even if they're going to stay home, they have to get up, they have to have their breakfast, they got to come prepared, they can't come in pajamas. It changes the mind frame. Okay, Freddie, what else would you say would be Tracy, you spoke on a lot of great different things. Definitely having the empathy, definitely having the social emotion component, because one of the things that homeschool children do is that they have social groups, but we're still in this new norm. So you really can't have the social group unless it with your core family,
Yes.
or people that you've already seen that's been tested or whatever.
Yes.
Freddie, what else would you say that possibly is a challenge for either hybrid or remote learning?
Well, first and foremost, when as an educator, especially that deals with children with special needs, I'm going to speak on behalf of children with special needs. So I'm going to address the virtual and the hybrid learning. So first and foremost,
Awesome.
virtual learning is something that educators were thrusted into. This came upon us suddenly. I believe as educators, we did a really good job. We adapted. We learned a lot of different platforms. I believe that virtual learning is going to continue to evolve. It's going to continue to get better than what it is now. We're going to see some new platforms. And I believe that the virtual learning component to a student staying home is going to be stronger than what it is now. Now, in reference to the hybrid learning, which is at one point you enter the school building and another point you're at home and you're being taught at home. Um, as a special educator, I would speak on behalf of children with special needs, especially children with autism. Children with autism, they need consistency, and they work better, they thrive better with a routine. They need to know what is expected of them. And I'm not saying that hybrid learning will not work for children with special needs, with children with autism. What I am saying is it's going to make it that much difficult for children with special needs, because they need that consistency of knowing, okay, I'm getting up, I got to eat my cereal, I got to brush my teeth, I got to get on the school bus, I got to go to school, there's a routine. Hybrid learning, it might be beneficial for children in mainstream classes in junior high school, but in elementary, for children with special needs, I think is that much more challenging than virtual learning. But they both have their benefits. But in terms of children with special needs, hybrid learning would be a little bit more at a disadvantage for those children.
Awesome. And I want to chime back in on that because that's very important to understand. Mainstream children, right? Will need a routine anyway, right? We know that because if they don't have a routine, if you don't set up I have a friend who has set up a classroom. You as a parent may have to choose to set up a classroom. Know that this is your specific place where you're going to come every single morning and have your breakfast, and then maybe shift to another place to have your classroom, because they need to see on both sides. The teachers, and I will chime back in with Tracy with one of the things you said. One of the things that I know for our first week of school, and my school is starting even earlier because we're charter. My first week of school, I already know it has nothing to do with education, and it all has to do with checking in with families. That's all we're going to do. We're just building that community, building that structure, building that understanding of, if you're going to be at home, this is what we are expecting of you. This is what we want you to be able to do. And having those conversations around expectation, right? And so parents, those are some words that you might want to begin to look at. What are the expectations in your household? What are the expectations when you have a child that is special needs? And what do you want to come out of your daily schedule? Because they need it. And it's going to be needed to be able to have the less breakouts and the less anxiety in the child. And so from that perspective, Freddie, I totally agree with what you have just said, that we definitely need, especially for students with disabilities. I think one of the disadvantages for hybrid learning, and Freddie, you can chime in on this definitely and let me know. But one of the disadvantages of hybrid is the social distancing, right? Because a child with special needs, especially an autistic child or a child with Down syndrome, they don't have that understanding that if I see somebody I'm excited, I want to go hug them. I want to go and be in their presence. And so that could potentially be another caveat of problems, problematic situations once we go back into a building and we got to stay away from each other. Oh, we are just so grateful that our pastor has come in on the line. Thank you, Pastor Keith, Pastor Campbell, for being here tonight. Thank you, Superintendent. We are just grateful for you coming in and having this forum and allowing us to be here on this forum. We just wanted to stop for a minute and acknowledge our shepherd, because this would not have been possible without him allowing us to have this forum. So, Freddie, keep going. Is there anything else you would like to address? Because I think that's very important because of the fact we have so many children that have IEPs, so many children in New York City that are on an individual educational plan. And that's something that we need to really just focus on.
I just want to speak on the social emotional component of that. You know, with the population that I work with, children who have autism, what you were referring to is we would consider that completely the opposite for our children, because our children who have autism, they prefer to stay alone. They have a situation whereas the social interaction portion is not all there. But I do believe that that's an important component in which, whether you choose hybrid or whether you choose remote learning, that has to be implemented. Whereas if they decide to come to the school building, that's something that we always constantly work on, the social component, social emotional component with children who have autism, trying to get them to talk to each other, to interact with each other, to get along with each other. And whether you choose to be remote learning, that component has been put to us as educators, that over the summer, we had to include the social emotional aspect. So the social emotional is important whether you're at home or whether you're in the school building, for children with autism. And it's not something that you could take lightly, because that's a big component for our children. When I say our children, I'm referring to children with autism. And that's definitely something that needs to be addressed, whatever you decide, it needs to be addressed in both situations, remote and hybrid.
Tracy, what would you say would be a benefit to either or? Let's get some positive, right? Because we know that, there are still benefits to this new norm, because we got to do it.
I know. Well, I'm a firm believer, and I had to learn this lesson early on as well, that when we are presented with challenges in life in general, it's an opportunity. So it's all about the attitude that we embrace, and knowing that we're not on an island by ourselves, that this is a pandemic, which means this is just not something that's going on in the Bronx. This is something that everyone is having to deal with. So we're pretty much in this boat together. So we're trying to rely on each other for the resources that are available, so that at this point it's a sink or swim. I mean, sink or swim. So it's a matter of figuring out what resources are available, what's out there that we can rely on, what are some of the tools that we can give our parents to put in their toolkit. There's so much information. One of the things that we are very pretty much blessed to have is the technology. The technology that's out there is amazing. The things, and I'm learning as well. So this is a work in progress for me, and I had to personally have a mindset shift. I had to have a shift at heart first, because I couldn't believe this is happening. I've been in this game for about almost 30 years now. So for 3 decades, I've seen some stuff. But I've never seen anything of this nature and of this magnitude. So I had to do a heart shift. I had to change and alter my mindset and see it as an opportunity to grow. So having said that, I had to avail myself with the resources that were available. I had to tap into the resources of my peers. And once I got past my own stuff, I would say that publicly, once I got past my own stuff, I was able to embrace it for the moment, which it is. And once I did that, just resources, I was blessed with resources that were coming to me from all avenues, that parents could tap into, that students can tap into, that I can readily use as an educator and as an administrator to engage students and to encourage my peers to foster engagement. We have this Danielson model that all of our teachers are evaluated based on. And one of the pieces that they're heavily evaluated on is the questioning component. So the question component as well as the engagement component are some of the areas that the teachers are heavily weighted. So in terms of our evaluations, those are the areas that we really try to find creative ways to engage student to student dialogue. So having the technology as a forum and having the virtual learning model fosters this, and it encourages the students to talk to each other. They have to, because they're not together physically, but in order to engage them, we have to rely heavily on our questioning techniques. So teachers and I'm speaking on teachers because I train teachers as well. I've trained administrators, I've trained teachers as well. So I go back and forth. But for the most part, this enables our teachers to pretty much, again, focus on the questioning techniques and rely heavily on the resources that are available so that they can foster those moments of engagement where students are doing hands-on, so to speak, pieces. So there's a lot of areas that they can use to grow.
So let's talk about that, right? Because there is a shift, right? And we've seen the comments coming in. There is a shift that needs to take place, right? In our mind, you said in your heart first, right? Because as an educator, you want that, you want to be in the building. You want to be with your kids because it's just easier, right? You have kids that, you know, just hug up on and do those different type of things. And we can't do that anymore. And so as facilitators, as educators, as parents, you have to begin to look at this new normal, just as our sister Tracy has said, as not a disadvantage, but this is an opportunity for you to grow, even in your family, right? One of the things that is a great thing about the social and emotional component is that now you can have family night, right? When's the last time in our generation we have become so inundated with everything around us that this pandemic has forced us to slow down, right? And so in education, sometimes you need to be able to reevaluate, like you said, those questions, Tracy, reevaluate where you are and what needs to happen, right? So those are those simple things like, where's my child going to learn? So you decide that. They're going to go to school or they're going to stay home. And then based on that, then it's time to make the plan, right? Because we want our children to be successful. We want them to be able to adjust. And I will be very honest, it was very hard for me at first being an educator and being a mom. But then by the time we got to May and the June, everybody in my house knew you had to get up, you had to do what you needed to do. And so parents, we want to encourage you, change the mindset, right? It's going to be school soon. It's not, oh, you're going to stay home and go to school. No, it's going to be school soon. And so begin to have those conversations with children of what that's going to look like, right? If your child has decided, right, what that's going to look like, you have decided as a family, then we definitely want to address that. Freddie, we have a question. It says, how has it been a gym teacher having to engage your students with special needs remotely? How has that been?
Well, you know, I do a lot of live teaching, and I do a lot of videotaping. So teaching remotely would consist of what I've been doing in the gym, minus one or two aspects. So what I would do in the school building was basically having a set schedule. Like I said, routine is everything, so that the students can know what to expect. Once they have the set schedule, it would consist of stretching, yoga. It would consist of breathing. It would consist of, you know, different sports activities like learning how to bowl, you know, using a sock and paper tubes. You know, so teaching remotely gym, it was a little challenging, but once I knew what was expected, I like my children. You know, I thrive on a routine. Once I know what is expected of me, it just gets better and better and better. So teaching remotely at first was a little rocky for me, but I did have a lot of support from my administration, from staff members, and at the same time, once I got the hang of it, you know, I would have to say that it worked out well. The kids enjoyed it, and you know, I look forward to it again, whether it's in a school building or whether it is remote.
And I want to speak to that because even though you work with students with disabilities, as a regular gen ed teacher, we still had to have that in our classroom, right? We had to have those social emotional breaks, and we also had to have those times because last year I taught second graders. And so we had to have those times where we would utilize Go Noodle or a YouTube video or something to have them get up and dance and move around
Yes.
because it's supposed to simulate what they would normally be doing in a classroom if they were in school. And so as that happens, then we need to understand that you need to lean on your teacher. You need to, parents, whether your child goes to school remotely or hybrid, definitely ask for the plan. That is one of the things that the governor has mandated, right? There has to be a plan, and the plan has to be visible. So when your child goes into their classroom, the teacher should have their expectations, should have what's going to happen, should have the schedule. You know, you're going to have some, we call it in education, you're going to have some synchronous learning. That's where you are all in the classroom together. And then there's some asynchronous learning where you might get an assignment and have to take, you know, that assignment and work on it individually. And I want to just pivot to that right quick because as parents, and I'm speaking as a parent right now, right? Even though I'm an educator, when your child gets an asynchronous lesson, that is the opportunity for them to gain independence, but still be guided, right? Because we want to make sure that they're not wasting time or energy. And if the assignment is over 3 days, then again, we've been talking about this, and I guess tonight is the night of consistency and those type of things. Making sure that you set that assignment out, right? Especially for elementary students, that if they have an assignment that we understand some of you may have to go back to school, may have to go back to work. But even if you're coming home at 6 o'clock and they have to work on an assignment, making sure that you're checking the assignment, because once again, we're going back into school, but there is going to be a grading system, and it's not going to be, I don't believe it will be as lenient as it was at the end of last year. There are
Yeah.
going to be some heavier guidelines
Yes.
grade in 2020 and 2021. You know, it's because we got thrown into it. But now we as educators are going into the building and they're going to give us specific understanding. And so we want to tell you that as you are getting that information, definitely lean on your teachers, lean on the administrators, and find out what's going on. What's the policy? What's the procedure? Freddie, I know you wanted to say something.
I think that's excellent because that speaks towards the whole fact that as educators, you know, I consider myself an educator. Um, you know, we are given a task which we have to carry through, and we have to do the best of our ability. But the emphasis should not always be on the educator. Now, what I'm saying is, some people might find it controversial, but this is what I mean by that. Whether you decide to go remotely or whether you decide to do hybrid, I think that the emphasis should always be the parent is the number one advocate. The parent is the one who's making sure that that child is receiving the services that they should be receiving, making sure that what is instructed to them, the assignments are appropriate, making sure that those kids are where they should be, making sure that those kids are receiving the support that they should be receiving, making sure that the assignments were done. The whole process does not fall on the educator. We have to work together. It has to be the family, the parents, the children, and the educators. It's just like on the IEP. When you have an
Yes.
IEP and you have an evaluation and you go in for the meeting, we don't just meet with the parents. We're supposed to meet with the psychologists, the counselors, the teachers, and the students. and this is what I'm saying, no matter what you decide, remote or hybrid, I think that it will all be okay if the parent is advocating and making sure that they're getting the necessary resources and and instruction that they're supposed to get.
Awesome. Freddie, I could clap right now. I really could. And I am.
Thank
Because
you.
that is so important. One of the things that I realized and in my school, we realized is that the parents were just as shocked as us, right? And so when we came into this remote learning, I had parents just like in my school, they call me Miss B. Miss B, I can't do this. I can't do this. This. And then it became a marriage where they begin to call me. They begin to say, Miss B, this is what I don't get. Can you help me with this? I don't understand this form of math. I don't understand this new way that y'all teaching them. I know 2 + 2 = 4, but now y'all want them to draw a picture. You want them to give a representation. And so as a teacher, then it was my time to facilitate the parent as well, right? And help them to be able to understand the education that their children is being provided, but then at the same time allowing that child to be able to talk to their parent and come to a reason. We have a question. What should a parent expect in terms of evaluation for grading for your children? We don't know that yet because we haven't gotten back into PD. Our professional development has not begun. But I want to say that last year, it was just, let's get to the end of the year. Let's do this. Let's give them some assignments. As to the reason why you see that a lot of the testing was taken away and all of those different kind of things, because you can't expect children to deal with the pandemic, deal with being at home, and still demand for them to be on a computer to take a test. It's just not. But what I would say again to that question, when your kids are back in school, what Freddie said, advocate to make sure you know what the grading system is going to be so that you can know automatically, right? What do I need to be looking for? What assignments are being given? Where is my child not giving an assignment in? If your child says to you Monday through Thursday, they don't have no kind of assignment, that's not going to be the truth. Go ahead, Tracy.
I just wanted to say that every single school, notwithstanding the charter school, maybe Michelle, you can address that. But New York City stipulates that every single school have what's called a school leadership team. And the school leadership team is governed by something known as a CEP, which is a comprehensive education plan, that every single principal is responsible for generating, and it's a public document. So any parent can go online and tap into that as that's the school's Bible, so to speak. Everything that is anything in terms of the governance of the school building should be stipulated in that CEP plan. One of the things that is actually voted on by the SLT committee is the grading policy. So it's like she said, it's not going to be as lenient as it was in the spring. So the spring, pretty much students kind of they got away with a little, but for the most part, the school leadership team, the CEP plan, everything that this parent needs to know about that grading policy is stipulated there. Also, your teachers will be giving you in the beginning the syllabus and all of the information in terms of the curriculum, in terms of the expectations. All of those things are detailed and outlined in those documents that the teachers will be given. And in some schools, it's a whole handbook, and all of that is clearly outlined there. But if you don't know, you won't ask. So I would encourage every parent to ask those questions that that you'll need in order to ensure the success of your child.
Tracy, the question was asked, and we got the answer, but just to say it again, what is the plan called?
It's a comprehensive education plan, the CEP plan. Every single New York City Department of Education school has one. So by law, they have to have it. And the SLT committee is also in place. Also, it's essential that parents are cognizant of the safety plan And at this point, it's all hands on deck in the school buildings. As of today, since they've opened up these schools, all hands are on deck. Teachers are out in the hallways. Teachers are responsible for not just their classroom, but they're responsible for the well-being of the whole child. Everybody from the janitors to the administrators to the lunch ladies, the lunchroom ladies, everybody is responsible for the wellness and the well-being of that child while they're in the building, with safety being the most important thing. So what I would encourage parents to be clear, crystal clear about the safety precautions that are set in place at the outset. Don't wait till something happens. Be proactive. You are your child's
Definitely.
greatest advocate. Be
Definitely.
proactive. Don't be responsive. But we seek to pretty much consider all possible scenarios to avoid problems. But like I said, this is organic. We're learning this whole thing as we go along. We're learning as we go along. This is new to all of us, so we're pretty much relying on the parameters that are set by the city, but also the governing body, being the administrators in the building, are the persons who we would pretty much go to be sure of those pieces. But at the outset, be sure about how the students will be moving, if they'll be moving. Are they going to be stationed in the classrooms and the teachers are going to be moving? In some cases, that's the
Right.
case. Ask those pertinent questions. Ask those pivotal questions that pretty much may come up later on, but be essential.
And to that respect, once again, the governor has said today that there is a specific guidelines that the school has to have, and it has to be accessible to the parents. There has to
Yes.
be some meetings before school begins that you as parents have to have with the school administration. It has to be at least 3 to 5 meetings. And then you have to be able to address the concerns that you have. And we have a concern here that's been posed right now. And the fact is that if we, once again, both all of us are saying advocate, know what it is. The governor has even said that they have to have a plan as far as what it looks like if somebody gets sick. What do you do? What is the school going to do? What is the cleaning policy? And all of these are in compliance with the Department of Education and the Department of Health. And so this is not the season, parents, that you don't ask the questions. And this is not the season that if you don't see it, you don't say something. Because you going to this question, please give advice for parents who are not comfortable sending their children to school in September and who work and rely on grandma to create the best living environment at home for special needs. Freddie, I'm gonna give that to you. You take that one.
So the question is, please give advice to those parents that are not comfortable sending their kids to school in September. And I have to let you know that there are many parents, not just children with special needs, but many parents across the spectrum,
Yes.
across the board, that are concerned with sending their children, whether to school or to keep them at home. Um, I can't tell you which one is better. All I can tell you is that you know your child. We know our students. If you're feeling as if you're sending your child to school and that's putting them at risk, I think a good choice will probably be remote learning. Um, Something that would make sense would be, the deadline was today,
I think it's
to put in
midnight,
your request tonight, midnight, to put in
from
your
what I
request
understand.
whether or not you
Yes.
want remote learning or hybrid learning. My suggestion would be, and this is only a suggestion, I'm no expert, but I would suggest that those parents that are on either side, they haven't made up their mind yet, go with remote learning. If you go with the remote learning, then you always have the option to go into the school building. That would always be an option. But I'm not 100% sure, but I believe if you pick the school building and then you decide to go remote learning, it's going to be that much more difficult for them to say, okay, we'll allow your child to do remote learning. So, I applaud those parents that are staying home and working with their children. I applaud the
Yes.
grandmothers and the grandfathers. I've experienced that myself. And I take off my hat to them because I know it's not easy for educators that are trained and are professionals that have to deal with, the education of a child. But we are definitely trying to get better. I believe September, there's going to be more resources. I believe the platforms are going to be better. Those parents, the grandparents, when you do remote learning, one of the things that you have to keep in mind is even though they have a schedule, the schedule's flexible. I know live teaching, they have to be on at a certain time, but everything else in terms of getting the work done and the reading assignments, you're at liberty to do it when you decide to do it. And that flexibility really helps around the house because sometimes parents have other things that they have to worry about in the house, and just know that there is support for the parents. And as educators, we're trying to take those considerations, and make things, whereas the parents are, better off if they decide to go remote or hybrid learning.
And there's always something
So,
for the
Freddie, and
child
then
to
the
do.
other part of that was, yes. And it's also important to understand that, like you said, the schedule is flexible, right? And
Mm-hmm.
normally, usually, from what we know last year, you usually get a couple of days. It's not like your assignment is due right then. You usually
Yes.
have a week to get your work in. The question was asked if what happens when you go to work and your grandparent has to stay home. Once again, there are different types of learning. And there are different things you can do at time. And the thing about it is that as the parent that asked that question, you may have the grandparent at home with the synchronous learning, whereas with the teacher, right? And then that asynchronous piece, that lesson that they have to do, you may have to do that part when you come home. And it's once again, it's that we are really going back to the village learning style, right? Because we are relying on each other. We're relying on grandparents. We're relying on aunties, cousins, and everybody else to be able to educate our children. And so, as again, like we've spoken tonight, make the plan. Once you know what is responsible and what needs to be done, then you, as the parent, make the plan to say, well, my child is going to be in class with their teacher at this certain time. And then I'm going to let my teacher know, right, that when I get home from work, then I'm going to work on the assignment, because that is the
Excellent.
flexible, pliable new world that we're living in. And you can tell your teacher that, and they're going to totally understand. Because guarantee you, some of them got children that they have to go home to and turn off the computer and start doing homework at
Yes.
5 o'clock. The question is, what if your child has bad case of asthma that will be at high risk? In that case, and I'm going to speak to that, I am a teacher that cannot go into a building. I am at high risk. I have things in my body that I'm not claiming, but that is who I am and that's where I am. And if you are concerned about that, definitely let the administrators know. There is no child that can be turned away from not going into a building to keep them safe. They're still going to get their lessons. They're still going to get their education. They're still going to get, and once again, like Freddie said before, know your children and advocate for them. Know your child and advocate for them. It said, I'm not comfortable sending my son to school, but unfortunately, we may not have a choice. I don't believe he may learn better at home. That's a big one, Dr. Campbell. That's a huge one because parents, there's many parents that are faced with that, problem. I don't want to send them, right? And we've already seen the schools that have opened up in certain places, you get good pictures, you get not so good pictures. You as a parent have to be able to then take that as a responsibility for you to decide, right? And we can only give you advice and say, you have to make the best decision. But the fact is that if you can't stay home and the child has to go to school, I told my daughter, I told my daughter when she was gonna choose, I put a plan together. I said, if you're gonna come into the house, when you come in the house, there's some things you gotta do. And it's almost like my child will become the essential worker. When she comes in the house, she's got to take off her clothes. She's got to put it in a bag. She's got to go take a shower. She's got to wash up. And this is the new norm. This is the new norm. So you have to then begin to understand, what is your house going to look like if your child has to go back into the building, to keep them as safe as possible, and keep their mask on, because there are things in the building that they have to be able to cross each other in the building during bell work, during the day. So they need to know the importance of keeping their body safe, right? And from that perspective, you go, guest ready.
Well, I just want to say that there have been some exceptions. A memo was passed out in reference to keeping mask on. Now, there are some exceptions in terms of children. Children in early childhood classes, kindergarten, first grade, they will be exempt because technically they don't have how would I say it, the ability to keep a mask on all day. Children that have health problems, they will be exempt. So there are exceptions in terms of
Right.
children coming to work with a mask. So even though you're sending your child with a mask, or mask will be provided in school, my understanding, mask will be provided in school, hand sanitizers will be provided in school. But with that said, you have to use the best judgment in terms of, do I send my child to school if they're at high risk? If they're at high risk, I would say that remote learning will probably fit you better. There's to put your child that is at high risk in home. I would say it would probably be better for them to stay home and do
Yeah,
remote learning.
yeah, yeah.
Tracy, can you answer the question that we have posed here? Because this is talking about middle school, high school, and college from this perspective. Yes, and we even have to talk about the college students. My daughter's here. She's going back to school, and most classes are online.
Can you
So can you speak?
can you
It
read?
says, will American, yes, I will American children fall behind in this new system of teaching? How can parents keep their children ahead of the game for middle school, high school, and college? How do parents are going to be able to help to keep their children ahead of the game?
Like I said, it's all hands on deck. The teacher staff, we tend to think we're superhuman, but we can't do this one on our own.
Sure.
We really are going to rely heavily on the manpower at home. That simply means that there has to be a degree of consistency. There has to be a degree of shared accountability on all parts. All of us are stakeholders. The parents are stakeholders. The teachers, definitely. The children, the students are, as well as the administrators. And as I stated, the well-being and the success of the child is the ultimate goal. But we can't get to those benchmarks. We cannot get to that goal and that end mark without all of these pieces in play. And there's so many pieces, there's so many moving pieces and factors that pretty much go against the tide, so to speak. And in some cases it may feel like an uphill battle, but it's something that I'm optimistic that we all can embrace. But it's going to take all hands on deck, and it's going to take a concerted effort. Having said that, there are many resources that are at our fingertips, the internet being one of the primary resources. There's also a parent-teacher coordinator at each school that can be a very, very good resource for the parents and that we rely heavily on. There are UFT teacher centers that are positioned throughout the city. I used to be a UFT center director, and we pretty much did some of everything to assist the schools meet some of their goals and some of their benchmarks, including parent outreach. So be sure that you are in communication with the teachers. The teachers, by law, have to have a daily outreach or weekly number of phone calls that are being made to the parents. So when you see those phone calls come in, take the calls. Don't just bypass it and ignore it. That's been some of the problem as well, and it's been very discouraging. But take the calls, all of the calls. I make it a point not to just make calls to complain, but I also make phone calls to encourage parents to applaud their child and to give them that positive reinforcement that they're going to need to rely on to kind of keep pushing and to keep them motivated. So some of those things are I would encourage. Also, like I said, encourage your students and your children to read. Encourage them to read. A lot of the
Yes.
lessons,
Yeah.
a lot of the instruction is going to be heavily rooted in literacy. It's going to be heavy bound literacy simply because of the nature of the beast, so to speak, that we're dealing with. So one of the pieces that I'm encouraging my teachers in my department to do is to assign a lot of reading so that we can test for understanding and check for understanding, but also so that we are shoring up the comprehensive piece that our students tend to lack, because everything is just so fast nowadays. And they don't want to read. They want to just look at videos, and they want the interactive piece, but encourage them to read, especially if they're college bound and in terms of college and career readiness.
Well, we're almost out of time, because we're going to talk about these resources, right? And so we have mentioned some resources for those parents that need resources. Definitely, there is Common Sense, right? That's a wonderful resource for kids for reading online. There's Rad's Kids. There's Epic, which has a plethora of books that you can gain and have your child reading those things. So those are different resources, but I promise you, when you go back into school this year, your teachers are going to have plenty of other resources that they're going to be able to give to you. So it's not all lost. We definitely are in a new world, but everything is now, like Tracy said, online. Everything that is going to happen is at the touch of a finger, no longer at the touch of a book. And so from that perspective, we need to be able to blend and be pliable, ask the questions, right? So if you want to take anything away from tonight, ask the questions, see the plan, make your plan, and then be flexible in the plan. And then from there, advocate for your child. Make sure that you know what your child is supposed to get, what lessons they're supposed to have, and what's the time frame of those lessons. And then from that perspective, then you set up the plan in your household to make sure that they're effectively working and not being lazy or lackadaisical, and then addressing that. Freddie, I know you wanted to say something, and then we're going to bring Pastor on to end us for this evening.
No, I just wanted to say that, I love what Tracy said. I think it was excellent. If a parent feels that their child is falling behind, there are resources out there. I say tap into every single resource that you could get your hands on, whether it's free or whether you have to go private and get a tutor or get a neighbor to come in and, to help out, or a family member. There's a lot of resources out there. If you're not aware of the resources, I know RCM just posted something on the message board stating that you could contact Restoration Christian Ministry, and they will help you with resources. But I do believe that having more than one resource and in terms of knowing where to go is going to definitely put you at an advantage. I also read a message. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No problem. I was going to the same message in regards to the remote and the hybrid. Yes, that is true. Once you choose whichever one you want, it's by semester. So Trish, thank you for that. It is by semester, but there's 3 semesters in the school year. Some schools may have 4, but every semester you'll be able to choose what you want. So if we see, and you start your child off remotely, and then we see that the pandemic is not rising, and you say, okay, I want to go hybrid. In that second semester, you can then switch them back to hybrid, right? So that's the choice. That's one of the flexible pieces of this event, right? And this type of learning, okay? We have a question. What do you say to those parents concerned about personal skills? Can you hear me?
Yes.
What do you say to parents concerned about interpersonal skills, crisis management, and other communication skills that may be halted due to lack of peer-to-peer engagement? Wow, that's a loaded one.
That's
Well, we that's heavy. Tracy, go ahead and address that one.
that's one of the concerns. I would always say go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Of course,
Right.
self-actualization is at the top, but your very fundamental pieces of security and safety are at the bottom, making sure that the student's needs are being met in terms of the security piece. That's one piece. But you have that need to belong, that social aspect piece, that piece that involves student to student interaction, that student to student engagement that's missing. It's up to the teacher to foster those things, but also at some schools they have town hall situations where teachers are able to join in with students, and they actually have a school-wide town hall that's something like the graduation format. But schools are getting very, very creative in some of the things that they're doing. And as we rely on each other for varied resources that are out there available to us, teachers are just rising to the occasion every day, and they're sharing the information. They're going online and they're researching and sharing information. Speaking of which, I would encourage everyone to use the unions as resources. The AFT, the American Federation of Teachers, has a wealth of knowledge and a great deal of information that they put out. UFT, certainly, United Federation of Teachers. The State Department of Education has a wide variety of information and resources that are available that you can take advantage of. And also the school sites. Don't be afraid to tap into the school websites themselves to find information. And think outside the box. See what's being done in other states. I do it all the time to get information. See what's being done. What's making this whole thing successful in other states? What are they doing? What are teachers in other states doing? Don't just minimize yourself just to New York City. So make this. I mean, at this point, we're in this boat together. Just find out what's out there and try to take advantage of all those things. And I speak to teachers as well as the parents.
And I would also encourage parents, if, one of the biggest things about homeschooling is the fact that when you deal with other states like Florida and other states that's been doing things like this, you have to begin to start to reach outside the box. So if you live in a neighborhood where, you know the people in your neighborhood and everybody has been living there for a while and everybody is pretty much safe, have a social time for your kids to be able to play. And because we have to start to do it new.
Yeah.
We have to start to do this new. And
Yeah.
so we thank you for this time. We're going to bring on our pastor. I want to say thank you to Freddie and to Tracy for just being open and willing to come in and speak about education, and just definitely reach out to administration at Restoration Restores and speak to those things. And if you need some help, please go to our page in Restoration Christian Ministries on Facebook and reach out, inbox us, message us, and we will get back to you at administration@rcmstore.com. And so at this time, we're going to ask that our pastor come on, and he's just going to wrap us up and pray for us in this new year, in this new normal, so to say.
Well, blessings, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this wonderful forum. I got some great educators. We are blessed at RCM to have some wonderful minds and authors of books and just people that are administrators and that are in the classroom and that have tenure in education. Thank you so much for your service. Evangelist Michelle Lindsay. Thank you, Tracy Smith. Excellent job. And certainly to our deacon, Freddie Ocasio, excellent job. We learned so much, and we were stretched to a place, as in the words of Sister Tracy, the mindset have to be shifted. So even my son was over here, and we were talking about the different sacrifices that must be made in order to do your best in this season. So there is a shift in mindset. We have to shift them as well as shift our parenting skills in order to push our children to be better, because we want them to be better. Amen. One thing I just want to share before I wrap it up in prayer is that I believe the five boroughs, obviously the Department of Education, which is the largest educational department in the country, we don't have the same kind of stipulations and regulations in the suburbs, meaning Long Island, Rockland County, Westchester County, Orange County. There is some variation. It's not going to be drastic. That's coming from the governor, but there is a variation of that, and there is some challenges with that remote learning for children that have extra help and things like of that nature. I'm sure it will be more structured. I'm hoping that the teachers will have extra help hours or whatever. But usually, I was a student that utilized that when I was coming up, at some time go and got some extra helps. I don't even know how that's going to go, but I'm certain that we're going to get that done. Thank you so much again for helping us through this new season, and I'm certain that we're going to come through better on the other side. And our children are already technologically savvy. They just got to get used to learning through technology. They have entertainment through technology. Entertainment through technology is different than learning, and there needs to be an adaptation. So we're not going to resist it. You know how people were trying to avoid computers until computers just overcame them, and then they no longer could avoid computers. Some people say, "I resist computers." Well, you can't resist it anymore. So I think we're going into a new direction, and we just have to adapt. All right, let's
Mhm.
pray. My prayer is for the educators, my prayer is for the children, and my prayer is for the parents. Father, in the name of the Lord Jesus, we thank you that this did not catch you by surprise. You knew where we would be in 2020, dealing with a pandemic and dealing with a crisis of gathering together. We do pray for this school year that none of our children will fall behind, and that God, instead of this being a disadvantage, I pray that the negative will turn into a positive, and that our children will adapt, they will learn, they will overcome, whether they have special needs, whether they have an IEP, an individual education plan, or whether they're just stream students. We thank you for the educators. We ask you to sharpen their skills, give them wisdom, knowledge, and understanding beyond their education, and give them a heart for our children, give them a heart to grow our children. We pray for them. We pray for the best of them. We pray for the system of our education, and we also, Lord, pray for our children that they may be receptive to new, innovative ways to learn and to grow. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen and amen. God bless
Amen.
you. And
Amen.
thank you so
Amen.
much for being a blessing to
Amen.
us and to so many people. All right. I'm out here with my son. We
All
just
right.
had a wonderful dinner. So God bless y'all.
Amen.
God bless. Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good
Good
night,
night.
guys.
Thank you.